After a Bitcoin weekend, and of course, Mr. Trump going out there at the Bitcoin conference, we'll break down how this affects the market in full. I think you guys are going to like it today. My name is Paul Bear. Welcome back into Tech Path. Just as a reminder, if you're brand new to the channel, if you haven't subscribed, make sure and do that because it does help others find their way over to news like this that hopefully will get them more educated around blockchain and everything that's happening in the crypto and digital asset space. So do that. It does help us out. Another thing I want to do is thank our sponsor today, and that is Coinbase. If you're brand new, again, to crypto and you want to start somewhere and get involved in it and make it easy, Coinbase is your destination. Just go over to Coinbase.com, the most popular crypto app in America right now. Join millions who trust Coinbase to buy, sell, and use crypto. They're always changing that frame right there. But you guys can get up to $200 in crypto when you join. Just use our link down below. It does help the channel. All right, a couple of things I want to hit on to, of course, today. Because this is a big week. If you look at everything that's happening, you've got Microsoft's Q3 earnings right there. That'll be helpful for the Mag 7. Wednesday, we have the FOMC rate decision. Most likely we'll air that live, so make sure and when you hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell, you'll get notifications on our live streams. Japanese interest rates decision did their first hike in nearly two decades. And then, of course, Thursday, we've got Apple, Amazon, UK interest rate decisions, all sorts of things happening. And then, not to be overshadowed, we've got jobs report coming in on Friday. So big day, big week for what's going to happen, I think, in the markets in general. And of course, bleeding into what has happened over the last couple of days, and that is the Bitcoin conference. And if you look at the speech recap right here, I won't go all into it because I've got a clip for you, but I love the first one. It's the best one. On day one, I'll fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chair. I want to go to the clip. This will wrap up everything here. We'll talk about some of these items that happened from President Trump and also, of course, RFK Jr. as well. Let me go to this first one. This was the speech highlights from President Trump. Listen in.
And I won't bother anymore. That's enough. Because we have to talk about crypto. We have to talk about Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin is going to the moon, as we say, it's going to the moon. No, you're going to be very happy with me. You're going to be so happy. You're going to say he's the greatest guy. The 9th most valuable asset anywhere in the world. Can you believe that? Is that right? That's a big deal. It's not bad. How about gold? How about gold? Let's go gold. And I don't think you've ever seen anything like it. And most people have no idea what the hell it is. You know that, right? We're going to let it grow. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. I didn't know he was that unpopular. Well, I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa. Let me tell you, if they win this election, every one of you will be gone. But right now, because of me, they're leaving you alone. So please say thank you, President Trump. Thank you very much. Now, you have to listen to these numbers. These numbers are like beautiful. And I don't want to repeat myself. During my 4 years in office, Bitcoin surged by 3,900%. Now compare that to just after 3.5 years of Biden and Harris, Bitcoin is up 50%. Now 50% sounds good, but not when you're comparing it to almost 4,000%. Now 50% is not good.
All right, so as you can see, he was a little bit all over the place. I don't know if people would look at this as a success, a failure, you know, kind of sideways on it. But I think when you look at the key talking points that he went into, and I'll just cover those again. Obviously, Gensler creating a strategic national Bitcoin. We'll talk about reserve. We'll talk about that in a second. Bitcoin going to the moon. Obviously, never sell your Bitcoin. He got into all that. So he covered a lot of the things that I think everybody wanted to hear. And like any politician, that's kind of their mission in life, and that is tell you what you want to hear so they'll vote for you. Watching them act on it is the most important thing. And look at what Trump has done with his own NFT program, along with his awareness of this, whether it's him, his advisors or not. This, of course, is an NFT collection right here. he was already into this quite a bit. Now, granted, not into Bitcoin, but definitely understood what was happening within the crypto space. And did you notice his use of the term crypto as well as Bitcoin? So at least his advisors are aware of the difference. And I think he is going to be interesting to watch as to how this plays out from his administration. The good thing is, I think he'll see this as an opportunity in the financial markets for what we'll see on Wall Street, which will really play into a popularity contest right now, coming down to the wire as we start to see other things play out in the political landscape. I want to go to another clip. This is CNBC and their opinion of how this might have played out for him. Take a look.
How exactly was the speech received by the general audience? Was there excitement? Was there a little bit of a kind of pause? What was the feeling?
Well, it was a letdown, and that's because the day before you had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announcing that on day one of taking office, he would sign an executive order directing the Treasury to acquire 4 million Bitcoin to have an asset reserve that was on par with the gold standard. So people were expecting Trump to go farther than a stockpile into a Federal Reserve. Now, we did hear from Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis saying that she would bring forth a bill that would propose acquiring 1 million Bitcoin over the next couple of years. But the point is that this has suddenly become this Republican issue where they've really tried to align themselves with this pro-crypto cause.
Okay.
So, and I would say that that tunes in, I think, to a lot of what the talking points are for a lot of the Republicans in terms of just pro-capitalism in general. But I think also this speaks very well to the independents, the progressives, and that is just freedom, the ability to kind of do this. Lummis actually went on stage after trying to get that point across, which was the strategic reserve idea. I've got a clip of her kind of breaking this down a little bit more in detail. Take a look.
Here it is. This is the Bitcoin Reserve Bill. In the Senate of the United States to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve, a network of secure storage vaults, purchase program, and other programs to ensure the transparent management of Bitcoin holdings of the federal government.
Some sound there, but the point is that there is a strategy in place. Lummis kind of leading the way here with the National Reserve for Bitcoin. This, I think, plays into a couple of scenarios that obviously are good, I think, in general. Two things that are important here to look at. One, of course, how does this affect, national debt? Obviously, we just broke 35 trillion out there. So I don't know that necessarily is anything that it's going to have major impact. I think this is more of a potential around national security, because national security could play into this, especially if we continue to see a lot of activity with BRICS and other nations kind of going in this direction. I also want to go to another clip here, because this other clip will get into a little bit more detail on how Novogratz, this is Mike Novogratz, talking about really what this might look like on balance sheets. So looking at the future of where Bitcoin is going. Take a look.
Bitcoin on the balance sheet of the United States of America, like how big would that be?
It is the single most bullish thing that's happened to crypto since I bought it at $98 in 2013.
Like, what would that mean? Would that mean like we are holding
probably at 100,000 in a week? I think they're both going to commit. They want these voters. I will be surprised. I'm willing to bet 3 beers. If you want to join, I can go 6. I'll throw up after probably the 4th.
I would go as far as to say it's nowhere near priced in to have 2 pro-crypto presidential candidates. Like we've never had that set up going into this. And
I bought a lot more crypto in the last week.
All right, so Novogratz might be right there if you look at strategic reserves as being a real potential here, and even if it is just a small amount. And in comparison, because remember, this will be a starting point, and what I think will happen is we start to see really this market start to explode. The opportunity there for the U.S. is huge. And again, he is also right that if you look at the Harris campaign, and if they do select to go pro-crypto, because I still feel that this might be the play by the Harris campaign, I think it's going to be a spin. Remember, Harris's voters are younger. They're much more progressive. They fall into the probably the two biggest categories out there, and that is Gen Z and also Gen A to a certain extent, and some of the millennials. So that could play into a huge opportunity, I think, for both camps, both Democratic and Republican, to be in the play. Now, of course, Kennedy also got into a lot of this. We've got some clips here from RFK's Bitcoin speech. Take a look.
Will President Trump fight for Bitcoin if he's elected? I wish he had mentioned Bitcoin in the RNC speech last week. I'm disappointed. He spent a lot of the last week attacking President Bukele of El Salvador, the only country on a Bitcoin standard. Should want to take a page from President Bukele's playbook and learn some of the lessons that he has to teach us about Bitcoin. And even more alarming, President Trump, in an interview last month with Bloomberg, floated the idea of bringing on Jamie Dimon as his Secretary of Treasury. I'm grateful that President Trump yesterday walked back that comment, but those choices don't match. I mean, personally, I would rather see somebody like Michael Saylor or Caitlin Long as Treasury Secretary. Finally, President Trump has had 4 years to pardon Ross Ulbricht and Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, and he didn't do it. And we need to ask ourselves why. Look at the candidate's policy, but more importantly, look at their actions to decide if they are genuinely part of the problem or if they're part of the solution. Decide if they align with what you believe in your heart. In fact, I don't think of myself as red. I don't think of myself as blue, and I don't even think of myself as purple. Instead, I think of myself as orange. And it's true that President Trump has orange hair. But I have an orange heart, and that's what you should support. Thank you all very much, and God bless you.
All right, some interesting statements there. Again, I know his camp is very pro on, the performance of how these presidents and administrations have done over their past administrations. And I think, that's fine. But if you look at Trump, and I'm not putting up defense on that, just saying that he was not a politician, went into the office, probably figured out a lot of things he didn't know. And I think, in the sense of being able to really kind of get a landscape of things, it was probably going to take some time. I think he's a little bit more prepared this time and understands just how deep it goes in D.C. So when you ask that question of RFK, whether he would stay in the race or drop out, listen to what he had to say.
Is your campaign right now closer than it's ever been to being over?
To being over? No, my campaign, it will be over on Election Day.
There's no circumstance in which you drop out of this race?
No.
And endorse anyone?
I can't imagine a circumstance right now where I would do that. I mean, anything is possible, but I can't, at this point, there is nothing in the cards.
Are you disappointed that ballot access has been as slow and possibly frustrating as it's been?
Well, yeah.
So I see some hesitation there on RFK, which is interesting because if you look at, body mechanism and, just language, I mean, he kind of leans back on that question. There are some things that are kind of intriguing. He's left the door open is what it boils down to. But one thing that you have to do, kind of give him credit for, and that is his knowledge and awareness. This was Safer talking about this. They had some time with RFK, but he's basically saying he's much more aware of what's going on in crypto and Bitcoin above the surface level. Because I feel like Trump kind of exposed his weakness on crypto and Bitcoin in the sense that he maybe doesn't fully understand what this is and how it works within really around a global economy. But I think RFK has a much better grasp of this. Now, what did that mean? Will it get him voted in? Probably not, but it could put him in a position where he could end up in a cabinet maybe on either side and be very effective on moving something like this forward. So a lot of cool things going on. Other things, the ETH ETF had a pretty good week last week. If you compare that, around 800 million to the Bitcoin ETF, 200 million on the ETH ETF. Not a bad deal when you look at a quarter of the Bitcoin inflows over the equivalent period of time. That's significant. And again, remember, I've talked about this many times on the show, and that is that it is Ethereum still very unknown. And I think that is something that the asset managers continue to battle with and really being able to see it going forward. The question will be is how people diversify their holdings, because some people might say, okay, if I'm gonna go crypto, maybe I'm gonna do a 60-40. But if we ever do get to that level, that could be significant for Ethereum going forward. Justin Sun, of course, is pushing China to try to reconsider their crypto stance. I don't know that this is necessarily going to work. I think China will go the opposite, but they need to step up since Trump is pushing for this. I think the bigger point right now is to watch what BRICS does. Watch what BRICS does, because this will give us a lot more of an indication of how China is thinking and maybe staying pace on this. Now, we may force the hands, when I say we, the United States may force the hands of BRICS and other countries, but China, I think, is going to go alternative to what our strategy are, whatever it might be. So a lot of things pulling out for sure right now. This was surprising to me. The wealthiest 1% right now hold 50% of stocks worth basically $19.7 trillion. This is significant because the opportunity here of a potential impact to the market should liquidity get into a position of simply saying, I'm not sure where the market's going, I want to retrace and hold or maybe take profits, could have some pretty significant impacts going forward. This is CNBC talking about whether or not they're worried about a big sell-off. Take a look.
So you're not worried about the potential for a big sell-off in the fall, or you're just not thinking either that long-term or short-term, depending on how you want to look at it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think we're going to have a volatile couple of weeks up until about October, September tend to be bad months for the market. So I guess I'm certainly just not worried about that volatility. I expect it. I expect to be buying on the dips, but longer term, again, I'm just a believer that the market is going to end up positive this year. And these are your opportunities to dollar cost average into a more diversified portfolio. But that last point, I am diversifying, right? So I have seen the small caps. I do think there's something there. I'm looking at names like MicroStrategy, for example. We saw the Nashville conference this weekend. America is going to be the land of Bitcoin if we, get that side of the house elected. So I do think there are some opportunities now to diversify as well, but I'm not afraid of the volatility in tech and that pulling back.
All right, so still people looking at the upside. We showed a clip last week, and this was Tom Lee. He kind of was in the same position. A lot of analysts looking at the S&P 500 right now and the position. And if you look at the scenario that could play out here from a political landscape, and also remember, interest rates, CPI continuing to slow. The concern I have is jobs, but all of that could play into a very bullish future for not only the S&P 500, but also some of the smaller micro caps. So definitely one to watch for sure. This, of course, is what we're watching right now, and that is the potential of a rate cut. So here you've got the FOMC meeting rate cut probability for the September 18th, setting at around 85.8. So I think this, based on the data that we're getting so far, the key here will be CPI over the next 45 days to really take a hard look at how this plays out into September. And I think the key here is if this rate cut does come in September, you could see a barn burner in terms of the markets, because I think a lot of people will be in a position saying, hey, we're on our way down. So definitely some good sense of where this might go. This, of course, is Fed Vice Chair, former Fed Vice Chair, talking about the rate cut September possibility. Take a look.
The last time we spoke, you felt things were getting good enough to cut rates. The question I would ask you is whether you think that comes before or after the election at this point.
Well, first, bonjour, I must say. Look, I think the cut probably comes in September. It's what the market is priced in. I think the data on balance would support that. And if they're not going to do it, they're going to have to signal pretty clearly and push back hard against the market. So count me in the camp of many that September's likely the first move.
And what would have to change in your mind if that were to get delayed at all?
Well, I think they'd have to see a series of really strong reports, which seems sort of unlikely at this stage. That includes, obviously, the upcoming labor market data at the end of the week. I think there's at least two more actually inflation reports that they'll have to see. But look, the data are mounting up, as I say, on balance that they should probably cut. We see inflation itself stable or coming down. Goods prices, which are an important part of this, given that services are relatively sticky, good prices have been moving in the right direction from their standpoint. And we're also seeing, some beginning of weakness in consumers. The consumer sentiment numbers from Michigan were relatively weak. So I think there's enough evidence for them to go ahead and cut unless there's something dramatically different in between.
So key here right now, guys, is we're looking for the potential of the CPI data coming in, pressure off the job market, and of course what we'll see, I think, around the issue of the market itself. Because if the market is not necessarily in position, which has been kind of sideways, maybe this is enough of the evidence that we need on Chair Powell's plate to say, okay, yeah, this is it. We think that we've paused enough. This is our chance to maybe start the adjustment here for the markets going forward. Now, I know we have a poll today. We'll try to get into some questions. I don't know if the guys gave me, it looks like they gave me some questions. So we'll try to get into some questions, drop some over on the side real quick, and I'll take a look at some of those. Let's go to the poll real quick, see how, all right, here we go. Bitcoin, what happens first? So a new all-time high. This is holding tight, 56 or a 64. So you guys think maybe, some of you, 44% of you, think we might get a little bit of a retracement holding in. Remember, Bitcoin overall has been on an upward sentiment trend for the last couple of weeks. So that is something that could still play into it, even though the key here, I think, will be some of the data that we'll get. And also, remember, FOMC meeting, that could have some indicators going forward to maybe solidify the rate cut coming into coming in September. That'll be a factor, I think, that could play into it. I want to get into some questions today. If you are looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, of course, has started a little bit of an upward move over this last little bit. The one to watch, though, has been Solana continuing its climb, really, since back here at 127 on July 5th. So not a bad move there for some of you guys that went in on Solana at that framework. It has been very positive, too, on sentiment data that we do. So, by the way, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, you get access to some of those trading tools that we use to track sentiment and some of the market movement, and it's a great place. All right, so here we go. Let's go into questions. Joey says, I haven't heard you talk much about NFTs lately. Are you still bullish on the NFT narrative? I think NFTs in general, yes. The projects, I'm still, kind of on the fence because I think it's going to take some time to develop. But I think when you look at NFTs as a device, as a vehicle, an instrument, definitely very bullish on that. And that's something that I think as we see more projects using it in a way that is unique and also in a position where it really makes a big difference on brand IP, very bullish. Let's see, what else are we? Chris says it's a success. Future president is going to accumulate Bitcoin. Okay, well, I think everybody looked at that speech maybe a little differently. I was looking at it a little bit more ho-hum because I don't think he was completely prepared. It was a typical Donald Trump speech, but really understanding what is going on in the market. XRP price forecast after the lawsuit, 3 to 5. That's not bad. I mean, Tim, Evan have both our traders that we talk to mostly. They've kind of been in and out on XRP. You look at where XRP is right now, not a bad move. I mean, it's holding that 60-cent range fairly significantly, which is not a bad one to be on right now. Jen A, not old enough to vote yet. No, I agree. I'm not talking about this round. I'm talking about the future, all right? You have to think politically. You have to understand how these dynasties run. And that is, you look at the Obamas, the Clintons, etc. These families that get into the potential of power. And I think that's an advantage. Jen A will eventually be rolling into that. And I think the influence that they have also on Gen X and millennials are pretty big. Just in the sense that they understand how I feel like digital assets work. What's the sentiment on XRP? It has still been very positive, even though over the last couple of days it has started to slow. So I don't know if that's an indicator that we may see a retracement here on XRP. What else do we have? Baylor Bear says, is that a real Baylor Bear out of Waco, Texas? Baylor Bear, like really? Baylor? Trump has a chance to win. A vote for RK, just throwing it away. I think a lot of people would say that. Whale says, I love RFK, but you would be throwing away a vote. Trump supporters are young too. I agree with that. There are a lot of, we have kind of our own studio pool. We have people in that age range, the under 25 group. And we've asked them, straight up, who's within your crowd, who's voting for who? And you're right, Trump is much more present than I thought he would be. Paul Barron, do you really think Trump will get rid of Gensler day one? Well, I don't think that he can do that as a president. Now, what will happen is he could step down, just because of the fact that there's an administration shift, which is usually what happens. So anyway. Fear Zero says more downside with a $2 billion dump from the U.S. government could happen. Very rare you see XRP listed in the background of others. I don't know what you mean by that, Diesel. Oh, yeah, okay. So when you're talking about some of the major mainstream medias, they have been listing XRP quite a bit. Actually, we've been calling that out for months on end. It's been up there quite a bit, much more. Solana's up there. I haven't seen some of the others. So I haven't seen like Avalanche go in there yet, or Cardano or anything like that. Ronin Network, number one in DDA across all blockchain, is still very undervalued. Thoughts on that? I mean, we've had the Ronin team on many times. It's probably not a bad idea to bring them back. I mean, we've had Alexander talk about this at length. I don't know. I'm still on the fence there. Life with Darnell says, how does the volatility on Bitcoin affect its use as payment method? Do you guys use Bitcoin as a payment method, really? I just don't know people will be using Bitcoin as a payment method. I know that a lot of people argue with that, but I just, the transaction speed is not there. You think all of these are dead? AVAX, whoa, easy. No, I don't think, I think XRP, dude, no, I don't think any of those are dead. I mean, Polkadot, who knows what's going to happen there? Avalanche, strong community. ADA, strong community. Matic, getting some new life on what we're seeing on Polymarket alone. XRP, you'll never kill that community. Can we reach 1 million in 2025? 1 million in 2025 for Bitcoin. I'm assuming that's what you mean. I don't think so. I don't think a million's in the card for 2025. Let's go 80K. That's a possibility that we could see. But right now we're eyeing that 70K mark. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and get in right now. We're going to hit one more poll real quick. What do we have here? All right, were you satisfied with Trump's speech? Everybody says no, meaningless and pandering. 41 and 59 says yes, good enough. Well, I think everybody looked at it in the sense that a campaign like the Trump campaign, along with the RFK campaign, acknowledged something that everybody's been yelling at the top of their lungs for a very long time, and they finally have acknowledged it. Just the fact that there is acknowledgement, I would agree, that's a successful thing. Now I think they need to educate themselves, really try to understand a little bit more. Now, granted, listen, these guys got a lot on their plate, trying to run a country, a campaign, etc. Yeah, I get it. You have to go surface level. It's difficult to go deep on these things until you can build a cabinet, which is when you need to go deep, and that's important. So that cabinet structure is going to be huge. The selection on both sides is going to be huge for the blockchain and crypto markets. All right, if you guys, again, if you're not subscribed, do it now. Get in on Diamond Circle. It's a great place to get additional content from me. I jump into our own little community over there. Little community, it's big, it's huge. But I'm in there all the time communicating. We do prizes, all kinds of fun things within that. And of course, if you're not following me on X, just do that. It's @PaulBarron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.